Okay, so today we're going to start with a quick black bean soup. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I almost always start with a mirepoix, which is a mixture of celery, onions, and carrots. I like to start the onions and carrots first so that they can sweat out a little bit and give off a little more sweetness and flavor, a little more depth to the soup. And I have my pan on the stove, and I'm just going to go ahead and start these sweating while I'm doing the knife work on the rest. Here again, I like to have everything the same relative size. That helps to keep things cooking, gives everything the same cook time, makes things cook more evenly. I don't like to use the leaves in my celery because it tends to be a little bit bitter. If I get a little bit of leaf in there, it's not the end of the world. It's about 4 cloves of garlic, and I'm just going to give that a rough chop. And last but not least, a little bit of green pepper. You can use red, yellow, green, whatever's on sale, whatever looks nicest at the market. I don't know if you've noticed, but I always try to work left to right. So my unfinished product is on the left of the board. I work on it in the middle, and then I move it to the right of the board. It just helps me to keep my workstation clean and organized, and it helps me to not have a really cluttered mess all over the board. Now, if you have other peppers and you want to use them, you can use any kind of pepper that works. The idea here is to build up the flavor. Honestly, any kind of peppers will work. Chipotle peppers will work. I'm just using green bell peppers here, but you can also use Anaheim peppers, poblano peppers, Fresno peppers. I also like to always throw in a dried pepper when I'm making either chili or black bean soup. Just gives it that extra layer of heat that I'm looking for. So there you go. These look like a little bit of these look like a Fresno that might have been dried. I honestly don't have them labeled, so I don't know. But I know they're good. So let's go over to the stove real quick. So I got a little bit of color on my onions, which I didn't necessarily want. Wouldn't want it to get any darker than that. You can see there's a little bit of color here, and that's nice. That's going to actually give it more flavor. Any darker than that, I always tell people black is burned, burned is bitter, bitter is bad. And so don't be bitter. I'm going to go in with my peppers, my celery, and my garlic now. And let that wrestle around in there. And I'm going to go in with my strained black beans. Now obviously this is going to make a huge batch of soup. It's a pound of beans, so you got to figure it's going to fill this pot right up to the top, and it's going to make a really rich black bean soup. I'm going to freeze some of it. I'm going to put it into containers and freeze it, and then I have it in there when I want to pull it out. The nice thing too is that if you cook the beans, season them, you can then freeze just the beans, and pull those out if you want to do a quick nacho dish or an enchilada dish or just anything where you need beans. You don't happen to have any canned beans, you can pull out your own seasoned cooked beans and make whatever you want to make. I'm going to go in with some chili powder. That's about a tablespoon. And I'll do 2 tablespoons of chili powder, give or take. And then I'm a huge fan of oregano, so I'll do a very generous tablespoon of oregano. And then the last spice that I use is cumin, right? And there again, this is a really flavorful dish, so I like to use a lot of seasoning. Go in with a good tablespoon of that as well. And you can adjust the amounts on any of these however you'd like. I'm going to go in with some black pepper. At this point now, I'm going to add in some chicken stock. I got this on sale at a really good price. Normally I use my own chicken stock, or if I don't have that, I use water. But since this was on sale, I went ahead and bought it. It's already smelling delicious. And this is a sneaky trick I learned from Jacques Pepin. This is just chunky salsa, which I've pureed, and I'm going to go ahead and add in about a half a cup of that. That gives it a tiny bit more flavor. And lastly, you guys know that I love, anybody who's seen my videos knows that I love sambal oelek, which is a chili garlic paste, and I use that for heat. And I do about a tablespoon. I'm going to turn my heat down to low, and I'm going to let that simmer for at least an hour. And we'll come back and we'll check on it. Okay, so the soup here is cooked. It's been on the stove for about an hour and a half, maybe a little bit longer. You can see the beans are super soft, and when I tasted them, they were completely cooked through. The carrots are cooked through. It's got a beautiful color. It smells delicious. The seasoning needs a little salt. I'll add that in a minute here. So I'm going to put in about a teaspoon maybe of salt, and I'm going to taste, season, and adjust. If it needs more, I'll add more. What I like to do on this stage is I take out the peppers. And then I take out the peppers, and then I'm going to puree. I'm going to puree this, about half of it. I don't want to puree it so that it's completely smooth. I like to just puree a little bit of it to give it a nice smooth texture and a little bit of creaminess to it. If you have a mixer like this is called an immersion blender, and I think I've shown you this before. I'm going to go ahead and use my immersion blender, and I'm just going to puree it lightly. Like I said, I don't want to do all of it because I still want it to have some of that bean texture. I want it to be recognizable as a black bean soup. So I just give it a little bit of a puree just to give it a little bit of that creamy feel. And I'm going to go ahead and taste it. And that's really spot on. It's nice because it has you get the flavor in the beginning, right? And then just at the finish you get a little bit of heat, not too much, and it's just got that nice balance of flavor and heat. I'm going to reintroduce my peppers just because they can steep in there overnight. So then to serve it, it's just a question of ladling it into the bowl. Right? And if it's too thick for you, I like it this thickness, but if it's too thick, you can add a little more chicken stock, add a little more water, but you do need to be careful if you do add more liquid, you have to add more seasoning, right? And I do a little dollop of sour cream, not too much. I do a little bit of parsley or cilantro, and then I do a little bit of scallion, and then some tortilla chips on the side. And you have a perfect winter's dish. So there you have it, black bean soup. Enjoy, happy eating.